Good morning, Year 4. Let's have a look at Monday's English, where I did say that we would be going into fronted adverbials in more detail after having just looked at positional where ones last week. So let's have a look at a quick recap to begin with. So we know that when we use an adverbial, it's to add more detail about the verb or about the clause. They can be used in lots of different ways, but basically it allows you to be a lot more precise within your sentence about the information. So let's have a look at the types of fronted adverbials that there are. Now you can see from here that you can allocate them into 5 different groups. Now they're all excellent, but as a writer you need to decide which one is the best to use for your particular sentence that you're creating. Depends on the mood you want to create, depends on what information you want to convey to the reader, but they can essentially be sorted into 5 different groups. So we're going to have a look at each of these groups in a bit more detail and see how we can use them before you begin today's activity. So how can we use them? Let's have a look first of all at fronted adverbials of time. You've got a basic sentence here to begin with. The children would return to school. Now, if you add a time-fronted adverbial in, it makes it really clear when the event takes place. So I have put a fronted adverbial prior to the rest of the information. So I've put next Monday, comma, the children would return to school. It's the same information. I've just made it a lot clearer as to when it's going to take place. By using that fronted adverbial, it's allowed me to be more precise. So that's a fronted adverbial of time. Remember, there are lots of them. Now, frequency is another example which you can use. So again, let's have a look at our basic sentence that we have at the top. They eat vegetables as part of their dinner. It works absolutely as a sentence in its own right. However, if we add in a frequency fronted adverbial to the start of the sentence, it then makes it clear about how often this event is taking place. So I've put in at the start of the sentence the fronted adverbial daily. Daily, comma, they eat vegetables as part of their dinner. We now know how often this event is taking place. Let's have a look at the next possible. Now, you can have a fronted adverbial for place as well, location. So the example sentence at the top is, the children played quietly. But by adding a fronted adverbial of where and place, it gives us more precise location. So I've added the word upstairs at the beginning of my sentence and used it as a fronted adverbial. So my sentence then says, upstairs, comma, the children played quietly. So I now know exactly where those children are and that they're playing quietly. Let's have a look at what else we have got. You can also have fronted adverbials of manner. Now, it's a funny word, manner, isn't it? You kind of need to dig in a bit deeper as to what it's actually asking you to do. So my example sentence at the top was, the archaeologist picked up the artefact. That's a really clear sentence. I know exactly what's going on. I know what the action is within that sentence. However, when I add the fronted adverbial of how, it's a manner one. When I add that into the start of it, I know how it's being done. So it can give you an indication of the mood of the sentence as well. So I've used carefully at the start of my sentence, which adds a lot more information to the sentence, even though it's only one word. Carefully, comma, the archaeologist picked up the artefact. That tells us immediately that that artefact might be very delicate, it might be fragile, so the archaeologist is handling it with care to make sure that it doesn't get damaged. Just by adding in that one word, it changes the mood of that sentence. We can also have fronted adverbials of degree as well. Now, these are really interesting because they can make a sentence both positive or negative, and it can give you a real insight into the writer's opinion. So my example sentence at the top was, the driver got out to fix the flat tyre. However, when I put in a fronted adverbial at the start of the sentence, I've put obviously angry at the start of my sentence, which gives us a real idea about how this driver is feeling, because it now reads obviously angry, comma, the driver got out to fix a flat tyre. So maybe an accident has happened and this driver has now had a consequence of it. Maybe it's to do with the really dreadful road surfaces that we've got in this county at the moment. Something to do with that. And we've got an anger element coming through with it. So you can see how we've made it a very negative sentence, and we've made it even more negative by using those two words at the start as a fronted adverbial. Now, things to remember when we are looking at fronted adverbials year 4. The clues in the name. They go at the beginning of the sentence. So remember, don't try and figure out somewhere else to put them within it. If we're using it as a fronted adverbial, then it is going at the start of the sentence every single time. So just remember that. I think that helps to make it really, really easy to know that it always goes at the front, it always goes at the start. And they are always followed by a comma before you then put the rest of the sentence. So when I've read those out previously, I've given the fronted adverbial, then I've said the word comma. That reminds me that that comma needs to be there. So when you are doing your writing over the next few days, if you verbalise your sentences first and verbalise that punctuation, it will help you to remember to put it in, particularly things like commas, where they can be a bit elusive and we can forget about them. Right, today's learning will help you to get more familiar with fronted adverbials. So the Word document is in the files for today, for those of you that like to print them out. The document is there and it looks like this. You've got a second page on yours as well. I've just cropped and put on the main information that I want you to look at this particular time. What I would like you to do is to create sentences that start with a fronted adverbial. You have got 9 blue fronted adverbials. What you are going to do is you are going to choose a fronted adverbial and write it down. Copy it accurately. There should be absolutely no excuses for spelling mistakes within this activity today. Copy your fronted adverbial accurately. Then you are going to choose one of the orange tiles from the bottom half of the document and you are going to complete the sentence. So you will have a sentence that begins with the fronted adverbial and then continues with the sentence of your choice. Now there are 9, all of them need to be used, so that tells you that for this activity today you are going to be creating 9 sentences. So that's really clear. Everything is there that you will need. Now, because you are using information that is already on the page, your spelling, there should be not a single error within it. You need to concentrate, you need to copy accurately and make sure it's absolutely spot on for me. Think about your handwriting, make sure it's neat, make sure it's cursive, make sure it is accurate all the way through. It's about presenting things with pride, year 4. So really, really, really carefully make sure it's done. And when it is completed, you need to then get your grown-ups to take a really clear photograph of it and email it over to me so that I can have a look at what you have been doing today.